Let's try this again. He is risen.
He is risen indeed.
And Jesus spent some time with his disciples after his resurrection. I noticed some of the movies about Jesus, they seem to skip that almost usually. But Jesus spent some significant time on several occasions with his disciples after he was resurrected. What's that like to be with a resurrected being? Good question. The longest account we have of Jesus' post-resurrection appearances is what I'll call this morning the breakfast meeting. You may know that's where Peter got put right. Where Peter's given the opportunity to reverse the curse. And I'm not being cute when I say that, reverse the curse. I remember, was it the 2004 Red Sox finally reversed the curse? That phrase was very popular. I used to drive under a bridge in the Boston area that said reverse the curse, and we were all hoping the Red Sox could do that, and they did. But I don't know much about curses and how they work, but apparently they're a real thing. And Peter had invited them to come down on him. He called down curses upon himself, we read. Do you know what I'm referring to? Matthew and Mark tell us about it. Here's Matthew's account. Actually, let me tell you first about the pride before the fall for Peter. Then Jesus told them, "This very night you will all fall away on account of me." When was this? This was the last night, right? They were together. Guess so. Then Jesus told them, "This very night you will all fall away on account of me, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee." Peter replied, "Even if all fall away on account of you, I never will." "I tell you the truth," Jesus answered, "this very night before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. But Peter declared, "Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you." And all the other disciples said the same. Okay. Then just hours later, we read of what happened. Now Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him. "You also were with Jesus of Galilee," she said. And by the way, just to make sure we are all on the same page here, the courtyard is of the high priest, and Jesus is getting tried for the death penalty inside the home. "You were also with Jesus of Galilee," she said, but he denied it before them all. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. Then he went out to the gateway where another girl saw him and said to the people there, "This fellow has been with Jesus of Nazareth." He denied it again with an oath, "I don't know the man." After a little while, those standing there went up to Peter and said, "Surely you are one of them, for your accent gives you away." Then he began to call down curses on himself, and he swore to them, "I don't know the man." Immediately a rooster crowed. Then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken, "Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times." And he went outside and wept bitterly. Then he began to call curses on himself, and he swore to them, "I don't know the man." Okay, now let's turn to the breakfast meeting and Jesus giving Peter the opportunity to reverse the curse, or curses. Let's read John chapter 21. It's page 769, I believe, if I got that page number right in your Pew Bible. We're going to read the whole chapter, John chapter 21. Where's my copy? John chapter 21. Okay. Afterward, Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Tiberias. It happened this way. Simon Peter, Thomas called Didymus, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples were together. "I'm going out to fish," Simon Peter told them, and they said, "We'll go with you." So they went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not recognize that it was Jesus. He called out to them, "Friends, haven't you any fish?" "No," they answered. He said, "Throw your net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some." When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It is the Lord." As soon as Peter heard him say, "It is the Lord," he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he had taken it off, and jumped into the water. The other disciples followed in the boat, towing the net full of fish, for they were not far from shore, about 100 yards. When they landed, they saw a fire of burning coals there with fish on it and some bread. Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish you have just caught." Simon Peter climbed aboard and dragged the net ashore. It was full of large fish, 153, but even with so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." None of the disciples dared ask him, "Who are you?" They knew it was the Lord. Jesus came, took the bread, and gave it to them, and did the same with the fish. This was now the 3rd time Jesus appeared to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you truly love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," he said, "you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." Again, Jesus said, "Simon, son of John, do you truly love me?" He answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." The 3rd time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the 3rd time, "Do you love me?" He said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my sheep. I tell you the truth. When you were younger, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go." Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. Then he said to him, "Follow me." Peter turned and saw that the disciple whom Jesus loved was following them. This was the one who had leaned back against Jesus at the supper and had said, "Lord, who is going to betray you?" When Peter saw him, he asked, "Lord, what about him?" And Jesus answered, "If I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? You must follow me." Because of this, the rumor spread among the brothers that this disciple would not die, but Jesus did not say that he would not die. He only said, "If I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you?" This is the disciple who testifies to these things and who wrote them down. We know that his testimony is true. Jesus did many other things as well. If every one of them were written down, I suppose that even the whole world would not have room for the books that would be written. Okay, so a lot of fascinating stuff in that chapter. We're only going to get to consider a few of them. If I can find the pages that are now missing, that is, here we go. 7, 8. Oh, I see. I get it. Okay. For you visitors, I don't do this a lot. I do this sometimes, but I don't do this a lot. Get lost in my own sermon. All right. Jesus after the resurrection, the disciples aren't quite sure what to make of this Jesus. They're a little off their game. They're uneasy. They remind me of timid little puppies. They rush Jesus, but then hang back, it seems. And Jesus has to coax them the rest of the way forward. Peter jumps into the water right away and swims ashore, and the rest of the disciples follow in the boat. But then when they get in his presence, it apparently is somewhat awkward. Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." None of the disciples dared ask him, "Who are you?" They knew it was the Lord. Jesus came, took the bread, and gave it to them, and did the same with the fish. This was now the third time Jesus appeared to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. It started off a little awkward anyway. Disciples didn't know how to react. Maybe after a while the conversation started to loosen up, but very likely not with Peter. Peter was so ashamed. He had done exactly what he had promised never to do. "Even if all fall away on account of you, I never will," he promised. 3 times he had denied. The third time, calling down curses on himself, he swore to them, "I don't know the man." Things were more than a little awkward at the breakfast meeting for Peter. There was definitely an elephant at the breakfast meeting between Peter and Jesus. So after breakfast, Jesus asks for a word. "Come walk with me, Peter?" When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you truly love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Feed my lambs." "Simon, son of John, do you truly love me?" "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Take care of my sheep." "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." We don't know when Peter came to that knowledge. "Lord, you know all things." When did you come to that knowledge? I think that might be the point of surrender for all of us, when we realize God knows all things. Sure, I'm not talking about what you may have already realized a long time ago, that God knows all things about the universe he created, that he knows all things about the physics, all the laws of gravity and thermodynamics and quantum mechanics and what have you. He knows it all because he created it all and set it in motion. But do you realize he knows you? Every single bit of you. Your likes, your dislikes, your love, your hate, your good, your bad, your joys, your fears. He knows exactly what you are thinking right now. I think if you know that, it becomes a turning point of surrender. God knows everything about me. The psalmist says, "O Lord, you have searched me and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you know it completely, O Lord. You hem me in behind and before. You have laid your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me, and the light become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is light to you." Peter knows he can't promise Jesus anything. He's already tried that and failed horribly. You know all things. You know I denied you 3 times. You know I called down curses upon myself. You know what a weak and pitiful failure I've been and I am. But you also know, Jesus, in spite of all my failings, that I do love you. You know that I do. I picture Peter, saying these words through tears of frustration. You know that I love you. You're my only hope. You've got to know that I love you, because I can't convince you otherwise. If it's not true, it must be true. Is it true? Do you know that I love you? Please tell me, Jesus, that you know that I love you. And Jesus does know. Does Jesus know that you love him? He knows, yes or no. He knows. And now the curse is reversed. 3 times 3 equals, apparently in this case, the curse reversed. But then Jesus adds, by the way, I kind of skip over that, but Peter denied Jesus 3 times. Now Jesus made Peter declare his love for him 3 times, and he knows that Peter does love him. And apparently they cancel, and the curse is reversed in this case. But then Jesus adds what might sound like another curse. But it's not, and Peter knows it's not a curse, it's a blessing. Verse 18, I tell you the truth, when you were younger, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted, but when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will dress you and lead you to where you do not want to go. Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. Then he said, follow me. I wonder if Peter realized in that moment that follow me applied to him, Peter following Jesus to a cross of his own. Peter promised Jesus, even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you. Well, that promise would one day be fulfilled. failed the first time, he's not going to fail again. What Peter once failed at, he will one day succeed. Jesus knows all things. He knows Peter loves him. He knows Peter will die for him. And some here sitting today might not see that as a blessing, might see that as a curse. Jesus telling you that you're going to die for him, but Peter saw it the other way around completely. That the promise that he made and then failed to keep, he is one day going to keep, and it's going to be his honor and his blessing to do so, and his reward. Peter and Jesus knew. We might see it as a curse. We might see it as something horrible. Peter and Jesus knew it was a blessing. And the curse was definitely reversed. Jesus knows all things. He knows if you love him.